Okay, this is part 3 of our bouncing ball program, and one thing we're going to be doing in every program that we write this term is we're going to be keeping track of our game state. Okay, so when you're in what you do is you just kind of divide your update method up into parts using if statements, and you just use an if statement to check to see what state you're in. If you're in a particular state, then you do something special. If you're in a different state, you do something else. So in order to do that, you need to keep track of which state you're in. So I'm going to do an int variable called game state, and I'm going to have 3 possibilities here, and I'm going to use constants for those. And we're going to call one state waiting. Whoops, and we have to tell what type it is. And we'll just use 0 for that. And state called bouncing, and that'll be state number 1, and a game over state that we'll reach when we reach the end of the game. Okay, and at the beginning of the program we're going to be in the waiting state, so let's go in here and do game state, okay, equals waiting. Okay, and I could use number 0, but the fact that I do it this way makes this stuff down here easier to read. Okay, now down here, if I'm in the waiting state, I'm not going to do any of this stuff. Okay, as a matter of fact, I'm not going to do anything, so I don't really need an if statement here. Okay. What I do need to do, though, is when I go to the playing state, I'm sorry, bouncing state. Let's try that again. So if game state equals bouncing, then I want to do all of this stuff. Okay, this is all my code to make the ball bounce. If I'm not in the bouncing state, I don't want to do that. Okay. Now the question is, how do I get into the bouncing state? Well, I'm going to use the start button on my gamepad. So I need a gamepad state variable. And we only need one gamepad here, so I'll call it pad 1. And then you're always going to do this with a gamepad. First thing you're going to do in here is you're going to read the gamepad. So pad 1 gamepad state dot gamepad dot get state. It's actually the same code that's right up here. And then I want to get player 1. So that will read the game state, the gamepad state for me, and then I use that. If they press the start button, that's what we're going to use to key the difference, the transition from the first state to the second state. So that's what I'm looking for. If pad1 dot buttons dot start equals button state dot pressed, then my game state equals bouncing. And I did it again. Okay, I got to pick the right one. Okay, and that's all it does. It just changes the state. But then I use that variable basically is what I use to remember what state I'm in. And then if I'm in that state, then I start moving the ball. Okay. Now the other thing we're going to do is we're going to put a stop in here, and we're going to let the user press the back button. So if pad1 dot buttons dot back equals button state dot pressed, then game state equals I think we called it game over. Yes, game over. Okay. And really, when I'm in the game over state, there's nothing else that I do either. So I don't really need to have any other code here that says if game state is game over, do this, or if game state is waiting, do this. The only place where anything really happens is here, but I need this instruction to get me into that state, and I need this instruction to get me out of that state. So let's run the program now, and theoretically now nothing should happen when the program starts to run until I press on the start button, which I'm going to do right now. Okay, and it's going to run and run and run, because now when I pressed on the start button, this instruction over here got executed and I went into the bouncing state. And now I'm going to go back to my program, which is still bouncing around even though I didn't see it. And I'm going to hit the back button right now. And oh, you know what? It ended the program because I left this instruction in there. Let's comment that out. I forgot about that. And now let's run it again. And I'm going to press the start button. Okay, nothing's happening. Press start now. Okay, and now I'm going to press back and it stops. Okay. So that is how you can use, look at the gamepad and change from one state to another. And then you will have if statements saying, if you're in this state, this is the stuff I want to do, but I only want to do it while I'm in this state. Okay, if I'm not in that state, do something else. So a typical game would have more than one if statement. Like this, you'd have, if the game state is something else, then there'd be some other things that you want to do. But we basically don't want to do anything when we're in this state. We don't want to do anything when we're in this state. So I really don't need another if statement for either one of those down below. Now the other thing we're going to look at in here is timers, because timers are something we're going to be using over and over again as well. So a timer is just an integer. So we need to declare it up at the top. And then down here we have to initialize it to some value. And I want this program to run for 10 seconds. There's 60 ticks a second, so it's going to be 600 ticks. Okay. And down here, every time through, I'm going to decrement my timer. And when I finally get down to 0, then I'm also going to go to the game over state. So there's two ways to get to game over here. One is by pressing the back button. The other one is by letting the time run out. So game state is game over. Okay. And now let's run it. And this time, after I push the start button, I'm not going to do anything for 10 seconds. Okay, ready, set, go. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006. Well, apparently I counted too slow. So that must have been about 10 seconds. And it just stopped on its own because the timer got down to 0. Okay. So this demonstrates how timers are really easy to do. I mean, all you do is you declare an int variable and give it a descriptive name, initialize it to how much time you want, and then down here, subtract 1 from it every time you go through your update loop. And when it gets down to 0, then the amount of time that you wanted has elapsed, and you can specify what it is that you want to do, which in this case is just changing the state. So that seemed awfully fast last time, but maybe I was just counting slowly. So let's try it here again. And I'm going to go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going way fast. Now, there's another way to get more accurate time, but I really don't want to get into it. So even though it seems to be going a little bit too fast, did I put 600 up there? Yes, I did. Oh, I know what I did wrong. I start the timer regardless of what state I'm in. I should really only be messing with the timer after the game starts and the ball starts bouncing. So let's move it down here. And I think what we'll find out is it's not really. Okay, now my indentation is messed up. The way to fix the indentation is go down here to the very last curly bracket, delete it, and then put it back in again. And now you go back up here and everything is good. So I was starting the timer instantly before, and I want to wait until I press the start button, and then we'll count off 10 seconds and see what happens. Okay. So program is running and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now it's working. So we'll stop this program now. Make sure you understand how timers work, and also remember what I forgot to do here is that the timer may not be running in every state of the game. So you may have to put it inside of an if statement like this. But we're going to be doing timers over and over again, and so make sure you understand that. Also make sure you understand the idea of a game state and transitioning from one game state to another by changing the value of a game state variable, and then having if statements to check to see which game state you're in before you decide what it is that you're going to do. Those are common things we're going to be doing in every program we write from here on out.